Right.
Hey, Kristen, good to have you on the show. We are going to talk about how to transition from law enforcement to corporate security. You worked for the FBI as an intel analyst back in the day. You made a successful transition. Then you had several successful transitions after that. And now here you are, vice president, working for a very big organization. We've talked before. You've got a really unique outlook on the transition process. And although we transitioned both from federal law enforcement agencies, I would suspect that my transition was a little bit different than yours. So let's start there. Tell us how did you transition? What helped you? What hurt you in that?
So I think I was really with the FBI only 10 years. So I was kind of hitting that point where either you really got to go or you really got to stay. And so I actually had a friend who was with another agency and, told me about this private sector opportunity and said they want to create a private they want to create an intelligence team at a private company. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. And he's like, well, I don't either. So I figured I would check it out and see how hard it is. So it was really kind of jumping into a program where there was absolutely nothing. So taking everything that I'd known for the past 10 years from the federal government and then trying to apply it to a corporation when I had absolutely no corporate experience and there was no existing program. So that was kind of fun because I got to kind of make stuff up to an extent, and then learn a lot very quickly. The first place I started was a health insurance company, and there was a lot going on at the time. It was 2010, so it was during the Affordable Care Act, aka kind of Obamacare. So lots of fun threats kind of going around the industry and about how people felt at the time. And so being able to just jump into a lot of different parts of the company very quickly. So not only creating the Intel program, but then I realized like there was really no travel security program. There was a travel program, but no travel security program. So of course that freaked me out that there were people going all over the world without any real security briefings of what they were doing. Building a GSOC, running that team, hiring, training, all of that stuff, getting into facilities. At the time also we had a female CEO, and she was kind of getting some significant threats. So I was asked to help with protective intelligence and then also be on her protection detail. So I went from FBI analyst to all these different things in corporate security very, very, very quickly. Blessing and a curse because I got to learn very quickly, but probably the downfall was I didn't really know what I was doing. So,
But you
and
had
that
an
was,
organization that would let you kind of run and you could
yes,
learn on their dime, if you will.
had amazing coworkers that were really, really helpful. And then my boss at the time, it was actually a huge, huge help. My first mentor when I got out to the private sector was the vice president of HR. So I got to kind of learn from someone who'd been with the company for, 25 plus years. And she showed me the business side of the business and the HR side of the business. And so not only was I trying to, pick up the security piece pretty quickly, but it helped me really, really learn the business. So I would always say the ability to step outside of your genre, step outside of kind of what you're doing and understand different parts of a business, super important.
Interesting. When we talk about mentorship, and I know we'll get into that more with you specifically as a mentor, but when you're looking for mentorship, a lot of us come from military and law enforcement background. That's who we want to be our mentor, somebody who has a similar background.
Yeah.
But you didn't necessarily do that. This folks from HR, by the way, super important, I think, to highlight that you're out of your comfort zone. You're learning from somebody who really understood the business much better than security folks do. Tell me a little bit more about what you learned there.
Well, it was very cool. She let me sit in quite often on a lot of her meetings, which was really great because then I saw not only how she was dealing with the business, but I got to watch her as a vice president managing her team. So not only did I get to learn more about HR in the private sector, learn more about the business itself, but then also learn from a female leader, which any sort of leader at this point, you're going to pick up pros and cons from everybody. But learning from a female leader of how she handled her own team and how she ran her own piece of the business. So that was very, very cool. I think from there, I ended up getting into and meeting some other intelligence analysts that had left the government and gone to the private sector. and got into a private sector intelligence group of individuals who I've now known for 10, 11 years, and they're amazing, fantastic people. But at that point, then just talking to them and benchmarking, talking to other people that are
Interesting.
at your level also and saying, how are you doing this and what are you doing with this? So a lot of folks are kind of afraid to ask for help or afraid to say, I don't know what I'm doing. The good news is security intelligence is non-competitive. So, I mean, if Egypt's melting down, Egypt's melting down. It is what it is. So we all have to deal with Egypt melting down, right?
That's right.
So if you talk to your peers and say, what are you doing about this? Or, are you evacuating? Are you sheltering in place? What's the guidance? Everybody's kind of working on the same thing at the same time. So that's super helpful also. So having both a mentor, but also like a good peer network is really, really important.
And when you built that peer network, that sounds like it came kind of about holistically. I agree with you. One great way to do it is through benchmarking. And for folks who aren't aware, if you haven't transitioned in the private sector, benchmarking is kind of what we would do to kind of standardize our, because there's no, a security leader in one organization may be completely compensated differently and different
Yes.
duties in another organization. So it's not like a chief of police in a city in Milwaukee, Wisconsin is different than the chief of police in Miami. You still have pretty much the same duties, right?
Right.
But in corporate America, it's different. And so good on you to benchmark that way. Yeah,
Yeah, and a lot of people are like, oh, we're gonna steal this, we're gonna steal that. It is not called stealing. It is called best practices
that's right.
and lessons
That's right.
learned. So we learn from each other. That's how we do that. And then you rationalize it as, well, this company's doing it, so it is best practice at this point. So that's always a really fun one.
The one thing I'll say on benchmarking is when you are benchmarking against, if you're trying to show need for a program in a company, benchmark against like companies.
Yes.
Not, I think when you're talking about intelligence and threat, you're maybe looking at geographic location or you're looking at a travel security program. That's, fairly the same. But if you're trying
Right.
to compare like my buddy Brian Tuskin at Microsoft to Walmart. There may be
Hello, Brian.
some
Hi,
little
Brian.
things. Yeah, they're just not going to probably do well. Both really massive companies, and that's about where they lead. So I think that's great point to bring up, and because you also learn about other people's programs, and you learn about other people and what they do and how they do it, and then you can see maybe, hey, I like using that best practice. You look
Well,
at comp levels too, which is important.
yeah, and some of that also, I mean, it fits with your company culture, and it fits with kind of the way that you want to run your programs. And some throughout the security industry are um, a lot more flexible, a lot more, I would definitely say, depending upon the company, you can get a lot more company culture coming into it. There are some where the security program is still very, kind of law enforcement, military, ideal set heavy, and other ones are very integrated with the company. And one is not right and one is not wrong. It just depends on the company culture and kind of how they want things run. So,
Great, that's a great point. One thing we talk a lot about here is understanding that corporate culture. But when you're on the outside, it's not easy to kind of understand, how things get done. But I think to your point is that's why you have resources on the inside. So let's talk about that a little bit more because, you did end up changing jobs. How did that happen? How do you stay resilient with your employment? Because a lot of people think that when you come out of the military or law enforcement, you're going right into a 20-year career with whatever company, and that's not accurate. Most people don't do that.
I do think that so I have changed around a lot, and if you looked at my resume, you'd be like, "Wow, she can't hold a job." But what I'd like to say is that a lot of the stuff that I've made have been strategic moves, either to get into a different part of the industry,
Yep.
or because it was a title or monetary promotion, um, or something that I was a lot more interested in. So that's kind of what I've looked at over the years. So a lot of the stuff, and pretty much every job I've gotten since I got into the FBI was because I knew someone.
The
Um,
network.
yeah, I was 19. I was an intern with U.S. Customs, so I had a senior because one of the young ladies in my college class was her dad was a senior customs agent, got me an internship. So having a senior customs agent write you a recommendation to go into the FBI is huge. And then from there, every job that I've had is because of my network and I know someone. Um, and because I've proven that I can do these things. So one of the things that I've done over the years was volunteering in some of these organizations. And so now I probably over volunteer. Um, but yes, slightly. However, volunteering is super important because it gets you out there. You get to meet different people. You get to network with different people. But also, it's kind of helped me over my career because people can see the different skills that I'm bringing to the table when I volunteer to lead a group or when I'm volunteering to lead even a phone call. It kind of helps everyone kind of understand your professionalism, and then you can also learn from other people. Years ago, when I first got out of the government, private sector, phone calls, like a conference call, like terrified me. And one of my very good, amazing friends, Scott Jones, would run these very huge conference calls with like 20 people. And I actually ended up taking notes on how well he ran a conference call. And then I would just like mimic that when I had a big conference call, so I didn't sound like a complete idiot.
But I mean, you learn on kind of while you go, and I think a lot of people who are considering transition or are in transition are really concerned about those
Yeah.
opportunities. Like, how do I learn that? Well, you just kind of do. I mean, you're no joke. You nailed it. When we in the private sector move around, it's usually because we're looking for different opportunities. Our organizations are very small. They're not 150-person, security teams. So you become stagnant. You want to learn a different skill. You want to go into a different industry. You want more compensation because you think you earned it and you have. Those are the opportunities that you have, and I love that freedom.
Well, a lot of places also, a lot of security, big secret, security teams don't get a lot of money. Shocker, right?
Right.
So if they're going to cut a budget for somewhere, they're cutting security and then they cut travel. But security is usually cut first. So you kind of learn to do a lot with a little. It's like your own little NGO, and so
That's
you end up I started with the Intel program. Then they were like, hey, we've got this GSOC that we want to put together. Oh, wait, we have to build it first. So can you work on the integration process? Then can you
what's a
hire
GSOT?
then can you hire people? Then can you train people? Oh, wait, can you do protective intel? We don't have a travel security program. Can you do executive protection? So I kind of got a crash course in everything my first couple of years out. And then I would get into things to see what I was interested in and say, okay, do I like doing this? Do I not like doing this? And when I was with the government, I would have never wanted to lead teams. I would have been like, no, I don't want to manage people. I don't want to do any of that. And now I've got a global team of like over 70. Yeah, and I love it. So it's kind of something I've worked myself into. But having the opportunity to do all these little things, because it's out of necessity a lot of times. The teams just need you to pick up other things, and it might not be part of your job. But don't ever say that. Just take the opportunity to try to do it, right?
Totally
Yeah.
agree. That's huge. That was very similar to my experience at NVIDIA. You become the jack of all trades and the master of none. But I learned every part of the business because when you're working with travel, this a lot of people don't know. There's a travel team in most big companies, right? And they are usually in procurement or they're in HR or they're someplace in operations. So you get to experience them and they get to experience you. And they're like, nobody's ever talked to us about travel security before. Is it important? And you're like, oh, let me tell you some stories, So that was my experience too. And then standing up our GSOC and intelligence program. Now, I had great mentors like Derek Hernandez and Wesley Bowl that helped me along the way. I didn't do any of this on my own. Like none of us do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hugely important. One of the things because we're both passionate about helping people transition for kind of the same reason we just found out that we've been at war now for 20 years. And so you're having people that are hitting higher tenure in the military, or they're just military, or they're retirement eligible so they can come out. We've had a huge hiring spike in early 2000s with law enforcement folks. They're getting ready to retire and come out. The world is not getting safer. In fact, it's getting, I think, worse in some parts of the world. And I have some great concerns with some of our biggest allies and some of our biggest challenges there. And G7 is going on right now. But how do you see kind of a mass of people coming out of these government entities? Where are they going to go?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. So like I was telling you earlier, my brother got out of the army and thought, since he was infantry and he was a door kicker, he thought he had to go into policing, and he thought that was the only thing he could do. And he hated it. He totally hated it. Like every day he hated it. He loved working with the people, but he hated the law enforcement aspect of it. And so it's not for everyone. So I don't want folks coming out thinking, oh, I have to go into executive protection, or I have to go into security, or I have to go into law enforcement. Google actually has, I want to say, as part of their hiring criteria on their careers page, they have like an MOS translator.
Yeah.
So, and there's a couple of companies that do. So guys coming out, you put your MOS in to this kind of translator, and it comes out in Russian. No, I'm just kidding. It kind
That
of
was a very
tells
deep joke. I like that.
Thank you. I figured that was a good joke for today. But it kind of comes out and it tells you, like, okay, this was your MOS, this is what you could be great at, and then here's the private sector jobs that could translate to that. So don't feel like, first of all, you have to be pigeonholed just because you're coming out with it. But second of all, don't just think because you were a high-level operator that you're going to be successful in a corporate environment, because I've seen it go both ways.
Yeah, we were talking earlier, kind of joking. You see a lot of resumes like I do, and we want the emphasis on the soft skills, not so much the hard skills. It's great that you're qualified with rifle, shotgun, and pistol, but I
Yes.
don't need your call scores. We want to know, can you manage a budget? How do you handle an HR issue?
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. And
It's a
by the
lot of
way,
those things. Like, I need you to put together a PowerPoint. We have to do a presentation to the boss. I need you to, talk to the front office. It's a lot of those things that, and the other part is a lot of the folks, this is another, thing with everybody coming out of the market. A lot of the people have the same skills.
yes.
Okay. So what do you have that's going to differentiate you and get you to the next level?
How
And
do you recommend they do that, though? How can they either differentiate themselves or get that kind of soft skill experience that they don't have coming out of the gov?
so two things. First of all, if you have a GI Bill, use every single cent of it, all of it. Use it all up. You guys earned it. Use it all up. And then if you've got extra, you can give it to me so I can finish off things. So the second part is also maybe get a mentor and start networking. Those are a couple of super important things because they can kind of say, look at what you've got and help you kind of um, maneuver what you have and make it more corporate sounding. I do this quite a bit because folks will come to me and say, here's my resume. And I'll say, okay, this is way too government or law enforcement or military. And if it's over 4 pages, stop. Just stop. Because I'm not going to read that far. I've been doing this 22 years. Mine is like a page and a half tops. So having someone kind of look at your resume and give you feedback, talking to someone, getting a mentor, or even talking to your peers that are out in the field, super important. Networking with people, going to network events. I'm hoping everything opens back up soon because this is awesome, but having a beer with people in public is even better. So there's a lot of different programs out there. So ASIS is kind of the large security mothership, for lack of a better term. And there's a lot of different groups there. They do have a mentoring program throughout ASIS. I am the chair right now of the mentor committee for the executive protection community. So what we're looking to do there is guys that are transitioning, guys that are new to the field, guys and girls, sorry, but folks that are new to the field that want to learn about executive protection and what the career opportunities are, you can get a mentor through the program. We can help you with that. I am also a mentor for the OSAC, which is the Department of State Overseas Advisory Council. They have a women in security group, and I'm a mentor for some junior professionals in that group. I'm also on the board of directors for the International Protective Security Board. And so we also do a lot with the community as far as professionalization and promotion and education, all of those fun things. So there's a lot of different groups out there depending on what you're looking for. And or find someone that's already, that's already left that because everybody's kind of at that point right now where they've got a couple of people here or there that they can talk to. I'm going to do this and volunteer myself. So if you hit me up on LinkedIn, I might be a little busy, but if I don't get back with you in a week, hit me up again. But for the most part, I try to give some time back to people in one respect or another, or at least kind of point you in the right direction and help you get started.
Yeah, this goes back to the network, right? And I'll note that ASIS, while that's a paid membership,
Yes.
you can join the national chapter or the international chapter, I guess. and you can join a local chapter that's in most big cities. But DSAC and OSAC, DSAC being the FBI's version of OSAC, am I giving that justice? Or
It is true. They have gone to a little bit different levels. So they used to be kind of more open to everyone in security, but now they've kind of brought it, I believe, unless they changed it again, up to more like the senior level. So it's a little bit more like ISMA, which is for CSOs.
right?
But it is still an organization that's out there. OSAC is the Department of State Advisory Council, which is probably one of the most sharing government agencies to the private sector.
I agree. Yeah, and it's free to join.
It's totally free to join, gives us the most information. Yeah.
I would encourage people too to join InfraGard, mainly because they put on a lot of events, and some of their events are virtual. They're not always great, but they're good, and they're good, especially if people don't know kind of what the private sector is worried about.
Right.
But the FBI has done a ton of outreach to the private sector. And out of all federal agencies, I think they do the best outreach, besides State Department. State Department's much more international, right? Or DSS is much more international, but I think the Bureau does a really good job domestically here at home. And so we're kind of coming up on our time, and I want to leave you with the last word. If you would do something different in your transition, or would have done something different, what would that be? And how can you impart that on folks who are maybe thinking about the transition, what that's going to look
like? I think it probably would have, honestly, I took some business classes a little bit later than I probably should have. And it doesn't have to be expensive. I mean, Coursera has affordable classes. LinkedIn has some affordable classes. Masterclass has some affordable class. So you don't have to spend a ton of money doing things, but it's really understanding the business jargon.
Yes.
And it's understanding why they use the language they use and how they speak to each other. And I think coming up to speed as quickly as possible and assimilating into whatever your new culture is as quickly as possible is going to help you be the most successful. The more you try to kind of keep it, para-law enforcement, paramilitary, you're fighting the culture. So what I would say is understand what interests you, understand where you want to go, understand where you want to live, because that's super important, because there are a lot of jobs in the US, but they're in places, and we talked about this, that really aren't affordable to live. So you have to really understand, what you want to do, and also what makes you happy. You have to have a work-life balance.
More importantly than anything, yeah, I agree.
Yeah, especially now. I mean, I've been home for over a year, so cool. But I think so. I think there's a lot of different things now, but one of the cool things also that is, especially with the pandemic, I think one of the good things coming out of it is there's going to be a lot more remote jobs. So that's pretty good too. But then you're going to have to figure out how to network remotely, right? And kind of do some of this online stuff as, that maybe you weren't used to doing before, to kind of get yourself out there a little bit more.
Yeah, I was in, so you're on the EP committee with ASIS. I'm on the investigations committee for ASIS. And we did a how do you do or conduct remote investigations webinar back in, I think, October or November of last year. Yeah. And by the way, people can find that, I think, online. If you can't, just message me. I'll see if I can get it for you. But I mean, this is the reality, is that there are very few barriers that we can't overcome somehow. I mean, sure, as an investigator, do I want to be there in person? Absolutely. But, sometimes it's not possible. You can't get to India as easily as you could before. And even before, it was quite difficult. So this is just the way the world is right now. But great talking with you, Kristin. I really appreciate your advice here, your mentorship, and your leadership really in the industry. I want people to make sure you're connecting with you and with each other. And I want people to share this, like and comment and do all those things. Both Kristin and I will definitely, if you comment, we'll respond in the comment section. But share this with your partners, because what we want people to understand is that there are other folks out there like us that want to help. You're not alone. People care about you, and we want you to be successful. So, Kristin, any last words?
No, I think That is one of the things that I want the next generation of folks coming out to have an easier transition than I had. I don't think mine was really rough, but it can always be better. And I feel like the faster we get everyone up to speed with kind of what we're doing, the more successful we are in the industry. It's always with security, especially at a corporation, they don't always listen to you. Um, and so I think if we can help each other kind of level up a little bit and share some of these things and benchmark of how we can help our corporations and how we can, be the caretakers for these groups, it definitely is important. So again, yes, please feel free to reach out. And if I don't respond within a week, it's just because I probably missed it. So try again.
Yep. Yeah. You got to stay on top of us. Everybody's really busy right now, and it's not because we don't want to talk. It really isn't, I promise. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's been super fun. So we'll do it again soon. And to everybody who's watching, keep sharing these and keep liking them. Let's make sure everybody is successful in their transition. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.